Alrighty, so in this video we're going to have a quick look at the Cursor UI. I'm going to show you where to find some of the core features of the UI itself. We're not going to spend a lot of time diving into what each of those features do. We will dive into those in later videos. This is just to get you familiar with the layout of the UI and where you can find different things. Okay, so when you open up Cursor for the first time, it's going to look something like this. You won't obviously have recent projects in here because you haven't built any yet. So what the options you're going to have are Open Project, Clone a repo. This is if you want to clone something from GitHub, or connect to SSH and pull your project that way. But this is essentially connecting to an external server. For the purposes of this video, we're just going to look at Open Project. We will come back to Clone Repo later on. Personally, I've never used SSH to do this, but you can do it. These are the two that you will use the most. This one in particular, Open Project, is probably what you'll use the most, honestly. So, starting from scratch, we are going to click Open Project, and we are going to find the test folder that I created earlier on, which is down here, and we're going to say select folder. Okay, now you can see in here, this is the folder we just opened, test app 1001. Within that folder is a test JavaScript file, for which I'm just going to paste in some code so you can see actual code in there. So when you have your projects up and running, when you actually get going, this is where the actual code will live, in all these files and folders that are going to be created down here. To actually view any of these, you just come over here and you click on it, and it will open it up in tab format across the top here for one or more files, depending on how many you want to look at. Now, what else is useful here? So, down, if we close this, and we'll show you how to get to that. One of the things that you will likely use a lot to be able to run the projects and things is the terminal. So you get to the terminal by clicking terminal at the top and then new terminal. And the first thing it will do is open up a PowerShell terminal in this. So if you're a Windows user, you get to use Windows commands in here, like directory, tell me what's in it and things. If you are someone who is keen to use Ubuntu on Windows, you can also do that as well. You can spin up a, this is a Ubuntu terminal, or a Linux terminal, I guess. It's still in the same folder. You can see test app 001 still in the same folder as we were previously. Test app 001, but we're just looking at it from a WSL perspective. Again, we'll come back to all this stuff later, so don't panic too much about it now. It's just good to know where it is. What you're mostly going to be using this for is when you want to start and stop your projects to actually test them yourself. This is kind of where you do it, assuming that the agent hasn't done it for you already. Which leads me neatly on to the agent. So this is where you're going to spend most of your life in Cursor. This is where you actually interact with the agent. So what can we actually see in here? So the first thing and most important thing is to understand the difference between agent and ask. So ask is, let's have a conversation. The cursor itself is not going to take any action when it's in ask mode. It's literally just a conversation. It can plan out in this chat things that you want to do, but it won't actually create those in files over here until you switch back to agent and then tell it to start doing things. Just be aware, it's a little trigger happy, so when you ask a question in here, it is inclined to just go and build or change something based on the question. If you just want an answer to a question, make sure you are on ask and it will do nothing but answer your question. So that's ask. Then assuming we're ready, we click over to agent. And what you can see here is you have the option to choose from a bunch of different models, and I'll show you how to make these appear in this list momentarily. My personal preference at the moment is Claude 4. I know GPT-5 is, GPT-5 has just come out. I've tested it. I still don't think it's as good as Claude 4. Personal preference, but you can go in here and choose whatever works for you, and I would advise you to experiment as well, because it is personal preference and everyone's going to have a different choice in here. One of the cool things about the agent functionality is the ability to give it context. So, for example, if you had a product requirement doc and you had saved it in a folder that was over here, what you can do is you can come in here and say, okay, in my files and folders, I'm going to give you this folder to look at because that's where my product requirement doc, or even the product requirement doc itself. And then it has the context of this folder for the conversation. The other nice thing you can do is you can add pictures. So you can either open up and go and find a picture that you want to share in here, but the beauty of Cursor is you don't have to go and save a file. You can literally grab a screenshot, Control V in here, and it will paste in your image. Particularly useful when you're trying to explain to Cursor what you want from a UI. If you have a sample website that you're trying to use as inspiration, then it's good to grab a screenshot of that, put it in here, and then Cursor can actually see the visuals on what you're trying to explain to it. So I find that super useful. I use it all the time. And also for things like when you get error logs, which you will eventually get error logs when something breaks. It's nice to be able to grab your error logs from your terminal. Let's just say, do we have anything open? If we wanted to, let's imagine these were error logs for a second and we want to just highlight these. What you can do is when you highlight them, you see over here you have add to chat, and when you click that, you can see here this is terminal selection from line 7 to 10. So then you can ask it a question specifically about that, which is super useful. What is more useful is actually just to give it the terminal itself. So again, thinking about giving it context, you can come in here, you can click on terminals, and you can pick the one that you have open. So in our case, we're looking at PowerShell, but if we wanted to switch to WSL, the Linux or Ubuntu one, we can do that too. And then you can say, go and look in the terminal for errors that you see. That is where you're going to spend most of your life in here. So that's the bit that you need to get super familiar with. Now, other things that are important to know about the UI are how to get to your settings. So you do that by clicking on File up here, and you come all the way down to Preferences, and then on Cursor Settings. So within Cursor Settings itself, I'm just going to close this terminal so we can see. There's a bunch of cursor specific settings in here. So this is where you would manage your account, or it's a link at the very least to be able to manage your account. Then you have your editor settings, you have your keyboard shortcuts, etc. down here. This is really cool in here. There's a lot of controls around what you can do with the chat. Again, I'm not going to go into each of these for this video. I just want to show you they're all in here. You can go and have a look at these yourself. We have this tab feature, which is actually interacting with the code itself. So this Cursor is very good at predicting what you're going to want next based on the current code that's in a file. Now, for the purposes of our community, we're going to try and not get into that because we want to concentrate on vibe coding. We want to concentrate on telling the agent what we want and just have it do it rather than go in there and look at the code ourselves. So we're not going to spend a lot of time on it, but if and when you get more comfortable with code and you want to go in there and you want to start playing around, tab is super useful to be able to do that. Then this is where you get to choose your models. So if you have a paid plan in Cursor, you get to choose from all of the models that Cursor is able to use in the background. Now you can, should you wish, come in and turn some of these off if you feel like you're never going to use them. I generally keep most of them turned on because it's easier to just choose my model from one place than having to choose it here and then go back and choose it here. Background agents is a whole topic that we will come back to in a later video. It is interesting. I would argue maybe it's a little bit too complex for our community for what we want to do, but it's interesting to see. We will come back and visit that later. We have tools and integrations. So within here, this is where you would go and connect your MCP servers. An MCP server, if you don't know, is essentially an external endpoint that your AI agent can hit and talk to ask for information or to complete specific tasks. So you can see in here, I have a few that I've opened. I have GitHub, I have Brave Search, I have Firecrawl, Supabase, and each of these has a set of tools associated with it that can take different actions depending on what you need. Super useful. And we will come back to MCP servers and how to set them up in a later video. We also then have rules and memories. So Cursor does its best to actually remember what your preferences are as it goes. When it identifies something that it feels like it should remember, it will say, you'll get a notification say, do you want to create this memory? You just click yes. And then you have saved memories in here. I've only got a couple at the minute, but the more you work with Cursor, the more this will flesh out for you. You can have user rules. So these are global rules for every time that you open Cursor in different projects. This set of rules will apply. You can also have project rules, which will complement your global user rules here. Project rules only apply to the project that you're working in, obviously. Then we have indexing and docs. This is useful to be able to point Cursor to documentation for, let's say, particular technology that you're working with. So you can see in here, I realize these are index failed. Ignore that for now, assume they're working. You can see I have Python, I have Streamlit, I have React, Vite, Supabase, Brave Search. And this is literally Cursor going to the doc site for each of these technologies and indexing them such that it can access that information to be able to build out the things that you're asking it to build. We also then have network, which you don't really need to worry about. And we have beta. This is as beta features get released, you can choose to opt in or out in here, should you wish, and if you're feeling brave, and then obviously a link to the docs. Okay, so that is your whirlwind tour of the UI itself. In the next video, we're going to talk about interacting with the agent itself and how we set up a basic project in Cursor.